There is a blue Honda CR-V that has not been returned to its owners. It belongs to Annie Guthrie and her husband Tommaso Cioni, Nancy Guthrie's daughter and son-in-law. It is the vehicle Tommaso used to drive his 84-year-old mother-in-law home on the evening of January 31st, 2026. 10 minutes. Annie's house to the Catalina foothills. He dropped her off at 9:50 p.m., walked her inside, made sure she was safe, left. That was the last time anyone who loved Nancy Guthrie saw her. The car was towed by law enforcement early in the investigation. Weeks passed. The Pima County Sheriff's Department publicly cleared the entire Guthrie family, all siblings and all spouses, as suspects. Sheriff Chris Nano said it plainly. The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious, and are victims in this case. Cleared. Officially. Publicly. Without qualification. And yet the car stayed in custody. Brian Entin, News Nation's senior national correspondent, the journalist who has been on the ground in Tucson longer than anyone else covering this case, asked the sheriff's office directly. The response he received: "It is in the process of being returned. A date and time has not yet been confirmed." In the process. Not returned, not scheduled, in the process. That phrase has sat in the public record for weeks without resolution. Entin asked again. The FBI offered nothing. No explanation, no timeline, no clarification. A family cleared of suspicion. A car held without explanation. Those two facts exist in the same investigation, and no one in an official capacity has reconciled them. This channel covers what others will not. The evidence, the silence, the questions that refuse to go away. Subscribe now and drop your theory in the comments, because this car is telling a story the FBI does not want public yet. To understand why that matters, you need to understand the drive that put Nancy Guthrie in that vehicle for the last time. Before the blue Honda CR-V became a piece of evidence, it was a family car making a 10-minute trip on a Saturday evening. January 31st, 2026. Nancy Guthrie takes an Uber to her daughter Annie's house for dinner. It is a routine she has maintained for years. Family meals, time with her grandson Olmo, the kind of evening that does not make the news because nothing about it is remarkable. Nancy Ellen Long was born on January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She moved to the Tucson area in the early 1970s and never left. She married Charles Guthrie. They raised 3 children, Savannah, Annie, and Cameron. When Charles died at age 49 during a mining exploration trip in Mexico in 1988, Nancy stayed in the house. She stayed in the neighborhood. She stayed in the routine. 5 decades in the same home, the same church, the same Sunday morning live stream that she attended so reliably that when she did not appear the next morning, her church friends knew immediately that something was wrong. By 2026, Nancy was 84. She had limited mobility. She relied on daily cardiac medication and a Bluetooth-enabled pacemaker linked to her Apple Watch. She had no cognitive impairment. She was sharp. She was present. She was anchored to a life that had not shifted in decades. Her daughter Annie and son-in-law Tommaso lived nearby, and they were the ones who made it possible for Nancy to remain in the house she loved. Savannah said it herself. They made it possible for her to stay in the house that we grew up in, that she loved so much. On the evening of January 31st, dinner ends. Tommaso drives Nancy home in the blue Honda CR-V. 10 minutes, he pulls into the Catalina foothills neighborhood. Drops her off at approximately 9:50 p.m. Walks her inside. Confirms she is secure, drives away. That is the last confirmed movement of Nancy Guthrie before she vanished from the face of the earth. 10 minutes in a car. A son-in-law doing what he had done countless times before. a grandmother returning to the house she had occupied for half a century. Nothing about the drive was unusual. Nothing about the evening raised concern. Nothing about the moment suggested it would be the last normal moment of Nancy Guthrie's life. That Honda CR-V carried Nancy Guthrie through the last normal 10 minutes of her life. Everything after 9:50 p.m. belongs to someone else's timeline. And the question investigators have been quietly asking, the question Brian Entin will not stop raising, is whether someone was watching that car make that drive. Whether someone used that 10-minute trip to confirm exactly where Nancy Guthrie would be, exactly when she would be alone, and exactly how long they had before anyone would notice she was gone. That window opened at 9:50 p.m. on January 31st. It closed at 1:47 a.m. on February 1st. Here is the gap that defines this case. Tommaso Cioni drops Nancy Guthrie at her home at 9:50 p.m. He walks her inside. He leaves. For the next 3 hours and 57 minutes, there is no verified record of any activity at the Catalina Foothills residence. No camera trigger, no alarm, no phone call, no digital footprint. Silence. Then, 1:47 a.m. The doorbell camera disconnects. At 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker app disconnects from her Apple Watch. 2 devices, 2 systems, both go dark in the same window. That is not a power failure. That is a sequence. Now, look at what the FBI recovered from the doorbell camera in the seconds before it died. A man approaches the front door, masked, gloved, a black mustache visible beneath the face covering. On his back, a 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack, a budget backpack sold at Walmart. On his body, a gun placed improperly in a holster positioned over his crotch. In his mouth, a flashlight clenched between his teeth so both hands stay free. He reaches the door. He taps the camera, light, precise taps, attempting to knock it from the mount. It does not come off. He does not force it. He reaches for a potted plant beside the door and pulls foliage over the lens. The camera goes dark. He does not look around. He does not scan the yard. He does not test windows or circle the house. He walks in a direct line from the street to the door. No hesitation, no wasted step. Behavioral analysts who reviewed the footage said the same thing. This is not someone encountering this property for the first time. The path is walked like a route that has been rehearsed. The suspect did not need to find Nancy Guthrie. He knew exactly where she would be and exactly when she would be alone. The question is how. Now, move to the morning. February 1st. Nancy does not appear for her Sunday church live stream. A friend contacts the family. By 11 a.m., relatives arrive at the house. Inside, her phone is still there, her shoes are still there, her daily medication sits untouched. The back doors of the house are found propped open, not forced, not broken, propped, as if someone needed a clear path out, or a clear path in without leaving marks. Drops of blood on the front porch. Later confirmed as Nancy's. Sheriff Nanos held a press conference on February 5th. She couldn't walk 50 yards by herself. Within 24 hours, the case shifted from a missing person search to a criminal investigation. 9 units, drones, aerial resources from U.S. Customs and Border Protection deployed across the foothills. They found nothing. Now, hold those 2 timestamps side by side. 9:50 p.m. Nancy enters her home safely after a 10-minute drive in a blue Honda CR-V. 1:47 a.m. A masked man walks to her front door like he has done it before. 3 hours and 57 minutes between the last moment of safety and the first moment of contact. Someone knew that car's destination. Someone knew when it arrived. Someone knew what time Nancy would be alone. and the car that carried her on that last drive is still sitting in a law enforcement facility, torn apart, put back together, and held without public explanation. The question is what they found inside it. The investigation moved fast in the first 2 weeks. Multi-agency coordination, FBI resources on the ground, digital billboards posted across 4 states, over 1,500 tips after the family announced a $1 million reward. But when you strip away the scale and look at the physical evidence, there is one category that stands out: vehicles. 3 of them were seized. None of them were explained. Start with the Range Rover. On February 13th, FBI agents and Pima County deputies converged on a Culver's restaurant parking lot approximately 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. A gray Range Rover was photographed, searched, and covered before being loaded onto a flatbed and towed away. Local news station KGUN9 broadcast the images. Officials never publicly confirmed who owned the vehicle. They never confirmed whether it was connected to the Guthrie investigation. They said nothing. A woman who answered the phone at the Culvers immediately hung up when contacted by Newsweek. Next, Nancy's own car. It was parked in her garage when deputies arrived on February 1st. It was impounded as part of the investigation. Its current status has never been publicly clarified. No official has said what, if anything, was found inside it. No official has said when, or whether, it was returned. Then there is the Honda CR-V. Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Sione's blue Honda CR-V, the vehicle that carried Nancy on her last drive, was towed by law enforcement early in the investigation. On March 11th, the Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed to Parade that the vehicle remained in custody. The family had been cleared weeks earlier. The car had not followed. Investigative reporter Dave Mack added a critical detail on his podcast on March 10th. The Honda was at an auto mechanic, still in the custody of the Pima County Sheriff's Department, being put back together. Hold that phrase. Put back together. That is not a description of a car that was searched and swabbed. That is a car that was disassembled. Seats removed, panels stripped. Interior pulled apart for trace DNA, fingerprints, fibers, or devices that should not be there. Brian Entin drew a direct comparison to the Brian Koberger case. In that investigation, the Idaho student murders, law enforcement tore a white Hyundai Elantra apart, piece by piece. Steering wheel, seat fabric, carpet fibers. The reassembly took weeks. The forensic results helped seal a conviction. That level of attention is not routine. It is reserved for vehicles that investigators believe contain something worth finding. Now, layer in the institutional context. Former SWAT commander Bob Krieger told Parade that the extended hold on the Honda probably boils down to something as simple as they gave the original scene back too soon, so investigators want to make sure they cover every possibility. Read that sentence again. They gave the original scene back too soon. Nancy's house, the primary crime scene, the place where blood was found, where the camera was disabled, where the back doors were propped open, was returned to the family before all evidence had been collected. Genetic genealogist C.C. Moore has since argued publicly that investigators should return to the house for additional DNA swabbing, specifically targeting saliva traces from the suspect's bite flashlight. They returned the house before they were finished with it. They have not made the same mistake with the car. That is not reassurance. That is an admission. The question that remains is whether the Honda is being held because of what was found inside it, or because of what was lost when the house was released too early. No official has answered that question. Not to the press, not to the family, not to Brian Entin. Brian Entin has covered the Nancy Guthrie case with more sustained, on-the-ground attention than any other journalist in the country. He has been in Tucson since the early days. He has stood outside the house. He has attended press conferences. He has hosted Detective Brian Martin, Cece Moore, Jennifer Coffindaffer, and Dr. Ann Burgess on his program. He has asked questions that no one else in the press pool was willing to ask. And on the Honda CR-V, his position has been consistent from the beginning. If the family has been cleared, return the car. If there is a reason the car is still being held, explain it. The silence between those two options is where the real question lives. On his podcast, Entin shared the exact language he received from the sheriff's office. They still hold a Honda belonging to Annie Guthrie. It is in the process of being returned. A date and time has not yet been confirmed. He noted that the phrase "in the process" had been sitting in the record for weeks without movement. He compared the forensic timeline to the Koberger case. He asked the obvious follow-up. Nobody answered. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer offered a counterframe on March 1st. She pushed back against the idea that holding the car signaled suspicion of the family. Their searches have been consent searches, she explained. In other words, law enforcement didn't have any probable cause to believe they were involved. They got consent. If they had probable cause, I could tell you this as an FBI agent. If I have probable cause, I'm not going to get consent. That distinction is important. Consent means no warrant, no judge, no probable cause determination. The family cooperated voluntarily. Coffindaffer tweeted on March 3rd that the Pima County Sheriff's Office confirmed the vehicle was in the process of being released. She urged the public to stop speculating about the family's involvement. But here is what the speculation misses, and what Entin's question actually targets. The car is not being held because of the family. It may be held because of the kidnapper. Go back to that 10-minute drive from Act 2. Tommaso drives Nancy from Annie's house to the Catalina foothills. A 10-minute route on a Saturday night. 3 hours and 57 minutes later, a masked man walks to her front door without hesitation. He knows the property. He knows the camera. He knows the layout. He knows she is alone. How did he know? If someone placed a tracking device on the Honda CR-V, trace evidence could remain on the vehicle's exterior or undercarriage. If someone followed the car from Annie's house, fingerprints or biological material from contact with the vehicle, a hand on the bumper, a body leaning against the door in a parking lot, could still be recoverable. If the kidnapper used that 10-minute drive as a confirmation window, watching the car arrive, noting the time Nancy entered the house, calculating the gap before anyone would check on her, then the Honda is not evidence of family guilt. It is evidence of how the suspect chose his moment. Entin's question is not about suspicion. It is about transparency. If the car holds nothing, say so. If it holds something, the public deserves to know what. The space between those two statements is where accountability dies. The FBI has chosen silence. Entin has chosen persistence. That is not a stalemate. That is a journalist doing what journalists are supposed to do. Here is where this case stands right now. Nancy Guthrie has not been found. No confirmed proof of life has been provided at any point since February 1st, 2026. No suspect has been named. No arrest has been made. No person of interest has been publicly identified. The combined reward for information leading to Nancy's recovery or the arrest of those responsible now exceeds $1.2 million. The FBI tip line remains active. The task force, 20 to 24 personnel split between the Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI, continues to work the case from the Bureau's Tucson office. Savannah Guthrie has returned to the Today Show. NBC producers have implemented protocols to pull her from set if breaking news on the case arrives during a live broadcast. She goes to work every morning on national television knowing that the network has a plan for the moment she learns whether her mother is alive or dead. In the Catalina foothills, yellow ribbons still hang from trees and fence posts along the road outside Nancy's home. Notes from neighbors and strangers line the memorial at the property's edge. A sign directed at the kidnappers reads, "Do the right thing." The Honda CR-V's current status has not been publicly confirmed. Whether it has been fully returned, what the forensic teardown revealed, whether a tracking device was found, none of these questions have been answered on the record. The official position remains what it has been for weeks, in the process. Brian Entin has not stopped asking. He has promised his audience he will continue pressing for answers on every piece of evidence the officials will not discuss. He is not speculating about the family. He is demanding that the gap between cleared and unexplained be closed by the people whose job it is to close it. If you saw the blue Honda CR-V on the evening of January 31st, driving between Annie Guthrie's home and the Catalina foothills, or if you saw anyone watching that route, following that vehicle, or positioned along the road that night, contact the FBI Phoenix tip line. The number is on your screen. The reward is over $1.2 million. One observation is all it takes. The family has been cleared. The car has not been explained. Brian Entin will keep asking. So should you.